Hi, I'm James the Grumpy Petrolhead. Why not come along with us today and I shall try and explain why we bought this Land Rover and what it's been like to live with this car for nearly 10 years. It all started about 18 years ago. For work, I was using a Ford P100. Now the Ford P100 is a pickup based on the Ford Sierra. And I was also using that P100 to transport my motorbikes to classic track day events. And I used to load the bikes on the back of that P100 with a dodgy plank, but we never dropped one. Now the P100 was coming towards the end of its life and was getting beyond repair. So I was looking for something else, probably a Transit. But my friend suggested a Land Rover. He was into his Land Rovers at the time and thought I should get one. So I looked at the Land Rover, I looked at the longer wheelbase, the 110, but it wasn't quite long enough to get some of my motorbikes in. So I didn't think that was the way forward. Ah, he said, what you need is a trailer. Then you can use the Land Rover, especially if it rains on a track day. You've got somewhere to go. They have bench seats inside and you have a little place outside of the rain on a track day. So that got me thinking, perhaps he's right. We went looking for a Land Rover and I found a 110 ex-Environmental Agency TD5 and we bought that, and it was a terrific way of driving the bikes around, and it was a really good vehicle to use for work. And what I found about the Land Rover is when we were using it at the weekend, it didn't feel like we were in the works vehicle like perhaps a transit van would. It did feel a little bit special, and it was rather nice to wave at all the other Land Rovers. When waving at other Land Rovers, you've got to be quite cool about it, haven't you? You've got to have a little bit of a, like that, not a, like that. So the 110 TD5 was great. I really enjoyed it. And it was a little bit of a rough one that I bought, but it was quite easy to service and quite easy to maintain. And it was really quite a cheap vehicle to own. So I drove that for quite some years until one sad day. I was in the house and I had the Land Rover at the front of the house, and Catherine was in another room, and I heard the Land Rover start and drive off. And realising it couldn't have been Catherine, I ran outside to find that someone stole it. Having a vehicle stolen is very annoying, to say the least. Have you had a vehicle stolen? Did it upset you? I was very angry about it, and it got worse because the insurance company made it very difficult. They were messing me about all over the place and didn't want to give me the amount that I'd paid for it, and they didn't want to give the amount that I needed to buy a similar vehicle. And so we had to fight them all the way, and it actually got to the stage where I said to the insurance company, don't talk to me anymore, you'll be hearing from my lawyer and we're going to sort it out that way. And at which point they said, okay, we'll give you what you paid for it. Fortunately, we found another Land Rover TD5 110 in the same colour, and another Environmental Agency vehicle. And again, it was brilliant for work, and it was also brilliant for towing the bikes as well, and putting all the tools and gear that we could take with us for a track day on in the back. And it was just a good vehicle if we were going away for the weekend. And like I said before, the main benefit of the Land Rover over, say, a Transit was it didn't feel like a works vehicle when we were using it for pleasure. So after some years with our second TD5, we started to look around for something a bit newer, something a little bit less mileage and a little bit more modern. Not that the old TT5 was anything particularly wrong with it. It was just getting a little bit old and scruffy, and we fancied something a little bit nicer. So we're now in late December, and we're at a dealer, a Land Rover dealer, looking at some used ones. And Catherine noticed this black Land Rover up on some rocks as like a demonstrator. So the Land Rover that we were looking at on display on the rocks was a Land Rover Landmark edition, kind of a rollout model really, and it had lots of extras on it as Land Rovers were stopped being made. So we took an interest on that one and said, well, can we buy that one? But the dealer said, no, that one's not for sale because all the Land Rovers have been pre-ordered now and there isn't any more available. So we thought, so we had a little bit of a negotiation with the dealer saying that, well, really, we'd like to buy that one, although we haven't pre-ordered it. And why couldn't we buy it? And they said, well, they really wanted one as a demonstrator and as a display one in the dealership. So we sort of said, well, okay, well, we'll leave it. And as we were leaving, they called us back and said they would consider selling this Land Rover that they had on display. Whether that was a sales tactic, I don't really know. But anyway, by the end of the day, we had bought ourselves a Land Rover. And not just any Land Rover, it was a Land Rover Landmark edition. Now this Landmark edition has a lot of extras on the car, and I don't know how many of these things are on a standard Land Rover, but there is quite a few nice things about this car, and I've written them down because so I don't forget anything. The car has really nice metallic paint. It has leather seats, full leather seats, and a leather steering wheel. And incidentally, the seats are heated as well. It has two-tone alloy wheels, 16-inch. It has Bluetooth radio. It has electric windows. This doesn't sound very Land Rover-y, does it, all of these things? It has Alcantara headlining. Imagine that. But most importantly of all, especially in this weather, it has air conditioning. However, all of this did come at a price. It's hard to fathom, really, because a Land Rover is quite a basic vehicle, and it has a 2.2 litre turbo diesel engine, the same as in a transit van. And all of this cost £35,000, which seems like an awful lot for what it is. However, it was less than 2 weeks later, I was at Wickes filling up the Land Rover with plasterboard, and a chap offered me 40,000, and he explained that he wanted one and wasn't able to get on the list for one of the last Land Rovers. So I guess it's probably, I haven't checked recently because I don't ever intend to sell this Land Rover, but I'm guessing it's probably holding its value quite well. And to date, we've only done 47,000 miles in it. But it's hard to believe now that we've had this vehicle. We bought it in December 15, so we've had it nearly 10 years. I think we need to address Land Rover's reliability. Now, in 10 years and 40,000 miles, I'm going to tell you all the problems that we've had with this Land Rover, all the breakdowns, all the faults. I'm going to tell you everything, tell you as it is, so that so you know. So 10 years, 47,000 miles. Nothing. Not one thing. Everything still works. Never had a breakdown. Never had any problems. Well, the only problem, if you can call it a problem, is the usual Land Rover water leaks. Water gets in the doors a little bit, but that's easily cured. I just took the carpets out. It is a little noisier on a motorway without the carpet in there. Now I'm wondering if this is unusual. Do you own a late Land Rover like we have, a late Defender? And if you do, Have you experienced lots of problems? I'm just wondering if we just got lucky and bought a good one. Because I do hear lots of stories, and people tease me in the pub and all this sort of thing about reliability of Land Rovers and the build quality. But I have to say, we've just not had any problems at all. We're even still on the original tyres. Also, the Land Rover hasn't been an expensive car to own. It's not very good on fuel economy, obviously. It's built like a brick. It sort of shoves its way through the air, so you can't expect too much there. But servicing costs have been low. Even when the car was new, for the first 3 years, I had it dealer serviced, and that wasn't really overly expensive. And then after that, I had it serviced by an independent garage. And in the last couple of years, because it's easy to do, I've been servicing it myself. So overall, I think in the scheme of things, it's not been an expensive vehicle to own. The Land Rover is a little bit noisy driving it. It's not unacceptable, but it's probably a little bit tiring on a very, very long motorway drive, for example. The other thing is the seating position. Now I'm 5'9", so I'm about average height, and I drive it with the seat all the way back. So I think for taller drivers, if you're thinking of a Land Rover and you haven't actually driven one, a Land Rover of this period, I'd give it a go first, especially if you're well over 6 foot, you might be a little bit cramped. Our poor Land Rover hasn't had an easy life. When I was working, it was quite abused in terms of what we would shove in the back of it and shove on top of it. So it hasn't really been mollycoddled at all, and I don't keep it immaculate. I'm not forever washing it, etc. And but it's survived well. There are some bits of surface rust here and there. Obviously, that back plate at the back, they always go rusty. So, but that's quite easy to fix. And so, really, and another thing, we're still on the original brake pads as well. So it doesn't seem to be getting through tyres and brake pads, but perhaps that's due to my sympathetic driving, shall we say. I do realise it's no sports car, and you can't fling it around like a sports car. So, I mean, that really goes without saying. I have to say the rear seats, which are full leather, by the way, they're a little bit cramped for people. It's more of a for occasional use, the rear seats, but they are easily folded out the way to give the carrying capacity back in the vehicle, and also for even more carrying capacity. There's only 4 bolts screwing them down, so you can easily take them out totally if you want to have quite a acceptable capacity in the back of the Land Rover. We don't do much in the way of off-road. We do have a little bit of land that's off-road, and so that does come in handy, although it's probably nothing that an ordinary car couldn't do. Now I'm retired now, and so's the Land Rover, so it's having an easy life, although we do a little bit of towing every now and again for friends. Hopefully this Land Rover is going to see us out, and we really don't want to ever sell it. It is such a convenient thing to own if you have to move things around. And it will carry a lot of weight, it will tow a lot of weight, and overall it's just a fun thing to drive. It does feel special owning this Land Rover, and also knowing that it was towards the end of Land Rover production, that makes it feel special as well, because the first one, or the first Land Rover came out, was it 1948? And the last one in January 2016. So it had a good run, and I'm sure the latest Defenders are great, and I'm sure that they're better in every way. However, controversially, I don't want to upset anyone here. I don't want to cause let's have a discussion about it. I don't think the latest Defender should be called Defender. I think they could have called it something else. To me, the Defender is a iconic vehicle and a vehicle of its time, and to call the new the replacement a Defender, I'm not sure. But what do you think? Am I totally wrong? Does it deserve to be called a Defender? I've never driven one. And if anyone's got one and they're watching this, it'd be great to have your comments, and I'd love to hear from you. But for me, I think we have the last real defender, and I really don't mean that in a negative way, but it's like I said, I just think the new defender perhaps should have been called something else, and we could have kept the defender name for that iconic vehicle. So look forward to hearing from you. Well done if you've made it this far, and thank you for watching the latest episode of the Grumpy Petrolhead. And if you are interested in old cars and old motorbikes, please stick around. And so we hope to see you in the next one. Cheerio.